Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us in the adventures of in-operational automation. My name is Arturo Suarez Martin. I'm the Senior Director for Customer Success with Rundeck at PagerDuty. I've been at Rundeck for a couple of years now and gone through the whole integration acquisition by PagerDuty. With me today, I have David from Parsons Corporation. David, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, thank you, Arturo. My name is Dave Morse. I am a principal site reliability engineer with Parsons, and we've been a Rundeck user for about 2 years now.
Thank you, David. So first question for you. Tell us a little bit about your role at Parsons and where is Parsons in their automation journey? Where's your team design policy when it comes to automation?
Right. Yeah, so Parsons is actually a 75-year-old company, and historically we've been focused on constructing critical infrastructure around the globe, things like Honolulu Airport. But lately, technology has been more of all of our lives, especially lately. And as the company started pivoting into more and more software-related stuff. That's about when I came on board. They started pivoting into the defense sector, and about 5 years ago, we really started our internal digital transformation here at Parsons, and it's been a whole new way of thinking. I mean, we're talking about your repeatable build processes, how to deploy everything automatically from automation, things that had just never been thought of by these normal folks that had been working traditional IT for a long time. And I'll admit I got some strange looks every now and then. People were kind of amazed at what is it you say you're going to do, and how much freedom did they allow you to have here. We're not at nirvana yet. We've still got a long ways to go, but we're getting there, and it's nothing like the company was when I first joined.
Excellent. So when we talk to a lot of our customers, they always have, depending on who you're talking to in the same organization, they're all going to have different stages or different levels of maturity on the adoption of automation. Mm-hmm. Automation is a journey, not as a destination, as you know. And it's all going to depend on what are the different IT services that are going to be automated, right? So we get to that level of granularity. Can you tell us a little bit of what IT services your team is supporting today? How's those operations organized, and what type of infrastructure you provide to support those operations?
Right. So I actually wear two hats at the company. One of my roles is to help with that digital transformation we talked about and bring thoughts of automation to everyone. And as that role, I'm interfacing with all the different IT teams, talking to them about their processes, their problems. My philosophy is something that we do often is probably the first place to try to apply some automation, because it's going to be done over and over again. We'll get savings. Also things that are, lots of steps or error prone. The other part of my job as a site reliability engineer, I get to focus on providing the tools that our own software developers need to produce the products that Parsons ships out the door to our customers. And so it's kind of that platform team, if you will, where we're building out and monitoring and keeping track of everything. And the automation in there, it goes from starting at the lowest level servers all the way up to the applications that are on them, and then keeping track of how it's performing during the day throughout the things.
That's excellent. It looks like you're moving towards, or if you're not there in some of these services, to the service ownership that is kind of the grail of automation, right? So providing the developers with the tools where they can build things, they can ship things, but they can also own things, and there's that level of accountability. You mentioned before that you're in a much better spot of where you were when you started. So can you describe how does Parsons adopt automation? Like, how do you decide what goes first? What are the use cases you're going to focus first, and how you share that knowledge with the rest of the teams? I guess this is just the initial seed that you plant, and then it kind of grows across the organization. How do you do that, and what are the challenges you've encountered?
Yeah. So I mean, we definitely, being a Linux guy in the background, I start with the Linux approach of let's make small tools, right? And so my automation is small chunks. That's where we started. We looked at, like I said, some of the problems that were the most error prone or the things that we did often. And we actually started with patching, just patch management of systems. And from there, we started automating those little pieces, putting them together, pulling in things like Ansible to create automation that was idempotent and being able to run through it. And then stringing on the next piece and the next piece. And I was fine with a lot of little tools that you used. And then the Nirvana became when we actually were able to kind of string a whole bunch of those little pieces together. We had enough of the glue in place to get whole processes done, to the point now where we have our chat bot, Hal, of course, who he runs more of the company than I do, right? To quote Tony Stark. And every Thursday night he comes in and just patches all the systems without us even caring. And if there's problems, he brings them to our attention. And lets us know, we've detected the security issue over here, or we're seeing these intrusions over here. And then he'll run the fixes for us, and he'll let us know that, I couldn't get it done, and I need our human to get involved. So it's been like that, and it's started to grow. It started in one team. Other teams started seeing what we're doing, and they started, hey, we want some of that, tell us what's going on. And it was a big learning curve, right? Trying to, the team I started with were people that were familiar with the automation tools and software engineering practices and things like source control. But those were complete foreign concepts to a lot of our traditional IT ops folks. Now, I think of it like I'm the parent of a teenager. I'm bringing them home. They're having parties. They're inviting their friends over. They're telling their friends what to do. I'm not sure what that messaging is, but I have to trust that I trained my generation good enough that the second and the third are going off, because I simply can't jump into them. That's how fast it's moving across the company right now, which is great. That's what we want to see. We want to see the second and third generation of adopters and kind of that wildfire growing across the company.
That's excellent. I love that teenage, as a father of a teenager myself. I love that teenage analogy. You mentioned security. Obviously, as a government contractor, there is a special interest or special attention to security. Traditionally, digital transformation and security compliancy might not always be on the same level of conversation. What unique kinds of requirement do you have to meet versus a commercial contractor? And when it comes to a cloud migration or a cloud approach to that digital transformation, which those two go hand in hand, what would be the providers that would give you those requirements? How do you use those cloud service providers?
Yeah. So it's definitely an understatement to say that we are a highly regulated industry, right? Across Parsons, I actually often use the metaphor of Goldilocks. We have actually 3 different product environments that we run. We run the open environment, which is run on AWS commercial, right? And this is for some of our commercial efforts, the things that are easy, things that you would normally think of with most companies. We have the protected environment, which runs on AWS GovCloud. And this is for some of, almost all of our government contract work, and then some of our more sensitive programs that need certain levels of protection in there. And with that comes a lot of compliance regulations and obligations to be able to be secure to a certain level and to prove it. And then we actually have the most secure environment. This is our walled garden. It is behind a company firewall, and this is where we have some of our most sensitive workloads. And so what we actually have to do is we have to build our tooling so that we can support both that lowest level infrastructure as code, and then, have a common layer that brings down the Ansible that deploys and set up the server management and does the configuration management of that. And then on top of that, we then deploy all of our applications in Docker containers. And what that allows us to do is take those top 2 layers, the glue and the actual application, and reuse them across those 3 environments, and then only have to worry about the abstraction layer at the bottom. And it's about the only way we can do it with the staff we have of, how do we support these very distinct environments with very different things? But the risks are high. The obligations are high, and people say, especially if you look at the news lately, there's been a lot of stuff in the news about cyber attacks and stuff like that. Well, as a defense contractor, they've come out and they said that the defense industrial base, which makes up all of the defense contractors in the world, has something to the order of about $60 billion of loss a year of people attacking and stealing government secrets from them. As a result of that, they've introduced some even more new compliance policies to protect it. And I can tell you, working very closely with our SOC, that we are attacked every day. We're attacked by both citizens as well as foreign nation states. They're trying to get into our servers. They're trying to get that data that we're doing on behalf of the government. And quite honestly, some of the contracts we have are actually in the cyberspace. And if you were going to hire a cyber expert, you wouldn't want one who was the victim of a cyber attack. So the risks are real, and our posture needs to be even better, right? We need to be able to detect and respond immediately and rebuild servers at the first case that there is any sort of penetration or attempt, right? We don't even want to try to fix it. I don't want to have fixes on top of Band-Aids. That's how you get into horrible places, right? So we work very closely with the NOC, and the moment that first alarm goes off, we send in that automation and we destroy that server and we build out a new one.
That's excellent. Excellent to for you to share. Thank you very much. It is indeed that at PagerDuty we call them mission critical workloads, right? This is mission critical, on to the power of X, right? And the ability to respond even automatically to some of those threats might be kind of needed. If you're waiting for a human action to really do something, right, you might be spending very, very critical seconds or minutes, and potentially allow some of these cyber attacks to really work, right?
Right.
My next question is more about what's next. I mean, you've gone a long ways, right? And it looks like you have a good mechanism to kind of spread the word without saying a word. That automation and security are the two things that need to go hand in hand in the company. In the coming year, 3 years, what do you think the next major operational challenges for Parsons are going to be?
Next operational challenge. Well, the world is changing faster than any of us are comfortable with. The tools are changing, but we're bringing more and more people into the fold. And part of it is keeping that operational knowledge and context. Because there's so much change in the environment, we need to be aware of what's changing and what's the effects of that. And it's that keyword observability, right? And then the big thing is, as I talk to my C-level officers, I've got to be able to keep pace with their requests. The joke I always say is I got to be able to deliver faster than they can change their mind. And that's proven very difficult. They can change their mind pretty quickly. But that's where we need to get to. And the delivery timelines on these, if you look at this, a couple years back, when we would finish a piece of software for the government, right, it was very waterfall. They'd come in, they'd tell us the requirements, we would work on it, we would deliver it for them, we would show them very often, and then we'd get done, and we would be, cut the software, and it would go through an accreditation process. And that accreditation process could take up to 6 months before it actually got in the hands of a warfighter and before it could be installed into that sensitive network at the government site. Nowadays, the Air Force has really radically changed this, and they've started creating these things called mission software factories. And these mission software factories are putting together a set of DevSecOps pipeline tools, very similar to what you've seen in the rest of the industry. And they're learning from it. And they're saying, hey, if we actually have these automated bottlenecks and testing in there and checkpoints and gates, the software that comes out, we know we'll have essentially gone through the same process that we used to manually do every time we had to go through an accreditation process. And they're now issuing what's called a continuous authority to operate as soon as that thing actually hits the end of that software. And then we're talking about, we have digital clones of real weapon systems, F-16s, Tomahawk missiles, digital clones of those. And then we release that, new build onto those digital clones, run another set of testing. And if it's good, it can actually be pushed up to a plane in flight within minutes of that code passing the gateway. This is light years ahead of where we were with, 6 months before you could even get installed on the person's network. And so the world is changing, our adversaries are changing, and the military is changing to be able to react to that problem set faster. And so, we've got to keep up. And then a lot of the tools we use are from the commercial side, and they've been hearing us foot stomp for a couple of years that, this DevOps way is the way to go. And how did, these companies pull ahead? And most of our vendors are now saying, hey, you know what? We are going to continuously deliver our software as well. And so the pace of upgrades and fixes and identified, security flaws that we've got to remediate has increased, which means the ops tempo of just keeping the lights on has changed, right? And so from my team, we've got this dual problem, right? We've got our vendors are releasing faster for us, so it's more work to keep up. And then our customer wants us to move faster. And so we've got to accelerate even faster. And we got to do it in a secure way. And so, yeah, the world is changing on us, and we just can't have enough hours in the day.
How do you balance? I mean, this is amazing, right? Like the way security has been embedded in, it's not that old, the software mechanisms or the continuous delivery and continuous integration, the way security, which traditionally was like the naysayers at the end of the process,
Right.
And made you go all the way to stage one, right? The way it has also embraced that delivery, that continuous delivery. I like the continuous authority mechanism, and the fact that we can prevent pretty much in real time or close to real time, I would say, or implement fixes to software pretty much close to real time, like even hundreds of times a day, right? So that makes the whole, it's a little bit counterintuitive, right? But it makes the whole software way more robust.
It is a little counterintuitive until it depends upon your mindset, right? And if your mindset is, that of, the old quote by Bill Gates, right? That success is a horrible teacher because it fools you into thinking you did things right. Failure is your ultimate teacher, right? And so when you're actually in that mindset, if you deal with the fact that, failure isn't just, oh, I got to go fix the system, but instead that's the opportunity to say, well, why did we assume that happened? What corner case did we miss? And then actually sit down with the team and brainstorm it. For every one thing that sneaks through our unit tests, we come back and we go fix 15, 20 new tests in there to protect that and every other new thing that's possible for us to think about. And what that means is, with that kind of mindset, that growth mindset, that it's getting harder and harder to get through that system, but it means that the things that do get through, we have higher and higher confidence that they're ready to go.
Excellent. So not everybody, and that might come as a surprise, but it's what is out there, right? Not everybody has that growth mindset.
Correct.
What advice would you give to other fellow PagerDuty Rundeck customers or Rundeck prospects thinking of getting started with Runbook automation or automation in general?
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, the truth be told is, along the way, the first thing I did was I envisioned the world of where we wanted to be, right? I envisioned a world where security and compliance folks were our partners, not our adversaries. And I brought them in. And I got to admit, I took a few rounds to the chest. I put a lot of ammo in their clips and let them fire it at me. But over time, it's gotten to the point where they now realize that we are on the same team. It's no longer that house of no that you hear about all the time, right? And we're working together to design, how do we get to yes? Looking at these sets of requirements and the give and take and the pull, who's going to win today and who's going to, get the compromise. So that's help. Bring them in, accept it, do your retrospectives, understand the problems, really take the time to dig into them. But the real secret here is, PagerDuty. In addition to, the typical things you think about with, oh, I'm going to call somebody at night or the server's broken, let's, get somebody on a call. We set up daytime on-call rotations for the team, right? And so I pull my developers and my SREs out of their daily functional roles to respond to both internal requests as well as all the problems that go off. And what that forces is that forces you to become a generalist, and it forces knowledge to be transferred amongst the team, right? It's kind of hijacking Conway's law, right? By forcing it across the team, we can force that collaboration because they simply can't do their job unless they're aware of the changes that are happening and around the tools. And so, that's a great pairing there. The ability to, have those automation that takes care of certain things, but then be able to escalate it up, be able to call in another team when you need, hey, this looks like this is something we're gonna have to go involve this team on, and drag them into a process that, you don't have to worry about or think about.
It's excellent. The concept of swarming, right? Like getting people involved from the different teams, making sure there is a collaboration happening, right? You get the tools, you get the systems, you get the processes, you make people collaborate around those. And that's a good recipe for success. I think we're out of time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, we absolutely embrace that swarming. We take it right from, the Toyota Kata with the andon cord, and we have a virtual andon cord that they pull, and it sends off alarms to everyone's channels. Everyone gets paged, and they all come in, and let's sit down and focus on this. It is part of our culture. Absolutely.
Excellent. Good to hear. David, we're out of time. Thank you very much for sharing a few tips with us, sharing the story of Parsons and how you're doing, and looking forward to a strong collaboration in the future as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.